Jimmy Haslam didn't wait for the locker room to settle before making his presence felt. Just hours after the Browns crushed the Dolphins 31-6, internal reports surfaced that the owner had personally stepped in, pressuring Kevin Stefanski about Shedeur Sanders. The question wasn't about the win, it was about the absence. Sanders didn't see a single snap, and that omission in a blowout triggered speculation that something deeper was happening. With the crowd chanting Sanders' name and the media demanding answers, Haslam's intervention signaled the team's internal rift was no longer rumor, it was real. And it's not about football anymore, it's about control, narrative, and who's actually calling the shots. Now with the Patriots up next, the stakes have shifted. This isn't just about game planning or depth charts, it's about whether the Browns are prepared to let their future quarterback finally step into the spotlight. The franchise can no longer hide behind vague organizational concerns, or the comfort of a quiet locker room. The pressure from above, the noise from outside, and the fracture within are all pointing toward one truth. Playing Sanders isn't a choice, it's a deadline. The Browns just annihilated the Miami Dolphins 31-6. It should have been the kind of win that sends the city into a frenzy. Instead, it lit a match under the one question burning through Cleveland sports radio, Twitter threads, and NFL roundtables. Where was Shedeur Sanders? Fans weren't whispering. They were chanting. Loudly. In the middle of a blowout, with the game well in hand, the entire stadium wanted to see the backup quarterback. That backup quarterback take a few snaps. But Kevin Stefanski wasn't budging.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Shedeur Sanders, son of Coach Prime himself, remained helmet on, clipboard in hand, and glued to the sideline. Not a single snap. Not in garbage time. Not even as a token gesture. And that's where the story starts to unravel. Because according to mounting reports, the decision wasn't just Stefanski's. Jimmy Haslam, yes the owner, allegedly stepped in. And not quietly. Word is, Haslam put direct pressure on Stefanski to get Sanders on the field. We're not talking about a casual hey, think about Shedeur type of suggestion. This was the kind of push that turns a personnel decision into a front office power play. Haslam wanted Sanders in. Stefanski held the line. And suddenly, a post-win celebration became a quarterback controversy with receipts. Here's the problem. This isn't just about playing time. It's not even about development. It's about everything Shedeur Sanders represents. The name, the media storm, the expectations, the cameras. The circus. And the Browns? They're terrified of it. Stefanski's public reasoning didn't exactly help calm things down. He said it would have been disrespectful to Dillon Gabriel, the starter, to pull him for Shedeur. He also cited fears about causing a distraction and shaking up the locker room. But let's be real, this was already a distraction the minute Shedeur's cleats hit Cleveland turf. The chants started the moment the score hit double digits. And they didn't stop. Local media ran with it. National media picked it up. Every sports podcast from Akron to LA had an opinion. And the Browns' silence? Only made it louder. Inside the building, there's reportedly been a very calculated effort to manage this entire storyline. They're terrified of it spiraling. There's this belief that if Shedeur steps onto that field, even for a single meaningless drive, it changes everything. The media frenzy would erupt. Headlines would start comparing him to Gabriel. The locker room would split. And worst of all, the coaching staff would lose control of the narrative. It's almost ironic. Because by not playing him, the Browns have guaranteed that very outcome. Now we're looking at something bigger than a QB2 situation. This is a case study in how modern franchises operate when media pressure, ownership influence, and fan expectations all collide. On one side you have the old-school football guys, keep your head down, follow the plan, ignore the noise. On the other, a billionaire owner who sees Shedeur Sanders as not just a quarterback, but a marketing dream. Jimmy Haslam isn't exactly known for staying in the background. And when you've got a backup QB with a name that trends faster than most starting QBs in the league, it's hard to ignore the business side. More clicks, more jerseys, more revenue, more attention. But Stefanski? He's coaching like he's walking on a tightrope with no net. By refusing to play Sanders even in a blowout, Stefanski made it clear. He's trying to protect his team from the inevitable. But in doing so, he's also showing just how much fear there is inside that locker room. Fear of disruption. Fear of controversy. Fear of losing control. And now, that fear is driving decisions. This isn't just a battle between two quarterbacks. It's a slow-motion clash between what the Browns want to be and what they have to become. Sanders isn't going away. He's not just sitting quietly on the bench. His presence alone is reshaping the entire direction of the team, whether they admit it or not. And next up, the New England Patriots. That game is more than a matchup. It's a turning point, a referendum on how long this dance can continue. Because the pressure is mounting, internally and externally. If Gabriel stumbles even slightly, the calls for Sanders will hit full volume. And if Stefanski ignores them again, we could be looking at full-on locker room tension and fan mutiny. That's what makes this different from a standard depth chart debate. Normally, coaches make decisions based on what they see in practice. Game plans, matchups, momentum. But here, the decision to keep Sanders on the bench wasn't about the Dolphins. It was about avoiding chaos. And that's the real problem. The Browns are no longer managing their football team, they're managing perception. They're running from a narrative instead of confronting it. They're trying to suppress what's coming, when it's crystal clear that Shedeur Sanders is eventually going to see the field. The only question is when, and whether it'll be on the Browns' terms or when the pressure breaks them. We've seen this before. Teams trying to delay the inevitable. Quarterbacks getting iced out until the PR storm forces their hand. And it never ends cleanly. The more you fight the spotlight, the hotter it gets. The Browns are acting like giving Shedeur even one garbage time snap will unleash a tornado. But guess what? The tornado's already circling. By publicly prioritizing narrative control, they're showing everyone, fans, media, even the locker room, that this decision isn't just about football. It's about fear. It's about optics. And in today's NFL, that's a losing game. Because if the team's scared of its own backup quarterback, what does that say about their confidence in the starter? What does it say about leadership? About direction? Ownership stepping in only adds fuel. Haslam's involvement confirms this isn't just noise from fans. It's a fire burning at the highest levels of the organization. When an owner gets involved in game day decisions, it shifts the dynamic. The coaching staff no longer has full control. Every snap becomes politicized. Every benching turns into a headline. It's no longer just Stefanski's call. It's a battle of influence. And the message to the locker room is clear. Perform or the suits upstairs will step in. That's a dangerous precedent. And it's one that rarely ends well for coaches trying to maintain authority. So what happens if the Patriots game goes sideways? If Gabriel falters? If Sanders gets his moment and it works? It's over. There's no going back once Sanders touches the field and flashes potential. The locker room knows it. The fans know it. The media will go wild. And the Browns? They'll either embrace the change or implode under the weight of trying to avoid it. That's why this isn't just about playing Shedeur Sanders. It's about the Browns confronting their fear of transformation. They've been trying to delay a storm that's already raining. Whether they like it or not, Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a decision the Browns are being forced to make in real time, under pressure, with every eye watching. And they're running out of excuses to keep pretending otherwise. So now we wait. One game. One slip-up. One bad quarter. That's all it'll take. And when it happens, don't be surprised if Jimmy Haslam doesn't ask, he tells. If you've been following this Browns saga and you've got thoughts, drop them in the comments. Should Sanders have played during the Dolphins game? Is Stefanski right to hold the line, or is Haslam calling the real plays now? If you're into these chaotic storylines where sports, power, and PR all crash into each other, hit that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, and share this with your friend who keeps arguing that QB2 never matters. Because in Cleveland right now, QB2 might just be the biggest storyline in the league. And here's the kicker. This isn't just a Browns problem. What's happening in Cleveland is a mirror to a bigger, messier reality in modern pro sports. Teams don't just manage rosters anymore. They manage stories. They manage brands. And when a player is the story, you either lean into the spotlight or get swallowed by it. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask for the frenzy. But his name, his dad, his social presence, it all comes bundled into this package you can't just stash on the sidelines. The minute the Browns signed him, they signed up for a media ecosystem. A tidal wave of expectations. A player with a spotlight so bright, the entire quarterback room is in the shadows. Let's talk about Dillon Gabriel for a second. The guy just led a blowout win. Stat sheet? Solid. Leadership? Reportedly steady. And yet, no one's chanting his name. That's not even his fault. It's just the reality of trying to play in front of a fan base that sees Sanders as the future, regardless of the present. And when your backup is more famous than your starter, you're already in trouble. Even if Gabriel keeps playing well, every missed throw is going to be met with murmurs. Every interception? A trending topic. Every press conference? A question about Sanders lurking in the background like a shadow that just won't go away. But the Browns? They're treating this like they can keep the two realities separate. Like they can win games, ride the hot hand, and maybe, just maybe, avoid the full-blown media chaos they know is waiting the second Sanders takes a snap. Only that separation? It's a myth. It doesn't exist anymore. The line between football and media spectacle disappeared the moment Deion Sanders' son walked into the building. And that's why Stefanski's refusal to play him, despite everything, wasn't just about football IQ. It was about delaying a bomb. But when the fuse is already lit, all you're doing is waiting for the boom. And let's be clear, the fans? They're not waiting patiently. Cleveland's known for a lot of things. Loyalty, passion, emotional trauma. But patience? Not really in the top 5. You could feel it in the stands. That Dolphins game turned into a referendum halfway through the third quarter. The scoreboard didn't matter anymore. It became the game where Stefanski refused to play Sanders. That's what everyone was talking about walking out of the stadium. Not the win. Not the defense. Not the playoff picture. Just one thing, why wasn't Shedeur in? And when the fans are louder than the scoreboard, you've already lost control of the narrative. Let's talk about what's really fueling this fire. It's not just the Sanders name. It's the Browns' history. This team hasn't had a stable quarterback situation in decades. Every season feels like a reboot of a doomed sitcom. New faces, same ending. Hype, disappointment, collapse. Rinse, repeat. So when a name like Sanders enters the chat, it's like handing hope to a starving city. Maybe this time. Maybe this guy's different. Maybe he brings something we haven't had: stability, swagger, national attention. Something to believe in. That's not fair to Gabriel, but fairness left the building a long time ago. And the Browns' front office? They're trying to control a narrative that's already been hijacked by emotion. That's the part they seem to be missing. Fans don't care about press releases. They care about moments. They care about momentum. And they're watching a team that seems too scared to grab either. Let's zoom out for a second. Jimmy Haslam's involvement might seem like an overreach, but from a business standpoint, it makes sense. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a commodity. He's clickable. He's marketable. He sells jerseys, drives engagement, and gives the Browns something they rarely have: national relevance. That kind of leverage is dangerous when you're sitting behind glass in the owner's suite. It makes you want to nudge the story along, to suggest things to your coaching staff, to reshape timelines. And suddenly, what should be a football decision becomes a corporate calculation. Stefanski knows that. He's not just coaching to win games anymore, he's coaching to survive a political minefield. Play Sanders too early and you risk blowing up your locker room. Wait too long and you lose the fan base. Let Haslam push you around and you lose respect. Push back and you risk your job. No-win scenario. And somehow that's the playbook the Browns are running with right now. And with all eyes on the Patriots game, the pressure has hit nuclear levels. The media will be watching every snap Gabriel takes like it's a courtroom testimony. Every drive will be a case for or against keeping Sanders on the bench. And let's be honest, if the Browns fall behind early, the chants are going to start immediately. Louder this time. Angrier. More desperate. And the front office? They're going to have a decision to make. Because if Stefanski still keeps Sanders sidelined, it's going to look like denial, stubbornness, fear. But if he gives in, if he puts Sanders in, that's the real show. That's when the Browns have to stop hiding behind strategy and deal with the new reality they've been dodging all season. That Shedeur Sanders isn't a side plot. He's the entire narrative now. The problem is, when you finally hand the reins to the guy the whole world's been begging for, he has to deliver. There's no room for error. No grace period. It'll either be proof that the franchise waited too long, or a confirmation that he wasn't ready. That's the trap. They've built the Sanders moment into such a spectacle that now, it has to be perfect. And if it's not? If he fumbles? If he throws a pick? The backlash won't just hit Stefanski. It'll ripple across the entire organization. Haslam, the coaching staff, the locker room, even Sanders himself. That's what fear does. It creates pressure cookers instead of progress. It makes you avoid the hard decisions until they're impossible to avoid. But the crazy part? This whole situation could have been managed months ago. If the Browns had simply treated Sanders like any other backup, let him get a couple snaps in blowouts, manage expectations, ease him in, the noise wouldn't be this loud. Instead, they did the opposite. They treated him like a threat, a distraction. And now that's exactly what he's become. A backup quarterback shouldn't be the centerpiece of your team's controversy. But in Cleveland? Yes. And with the Patriots game looming, this franchise is standing at a crossroads. They can keep pretending like the pressure's not real, that they're making decisions in the best interest of the team, or they can finally acknowledge the obvious. That Shedeur Sanders is more than just the next man up. He's the next era, whether they're ready for it or not. And if this upcoming game pushes them over the edge, don't act surprised. Don't pretend it came out of nowhere. This has been building since the moment his name hit the roster. And now, the Browns are out of places to hide. Let's not forget, Cleveland is the team that's made quarterback drama into a seasonal tradition. Draft busts, rotating starters, flash-in-the-pan heroes turned locker room headaches. This team has seen it all. So when a high-profile backup like Shedeur Sanders shows up, of course it doesn't go smoothly. Of course there's a plot twist. That's the Browns' way. What's wild is how predictable this all was. The moment Shedeur was signed, the clock started ticking. The headlines were already written. Everyone knew this wouldn't be a quiet backup situation. Not when you've got the last name Sanders. Not when your dad is one of the most media-savvy figures in all of football. Not when every social media post you make gets more engagement than the team's official page. And yet, the Browns walked straight into it. No plan. No communication. No preparation. Just vibes. They thought they could play it cool, treat it like any other backup situation and hope no one noticed. But fans aren't stupid. They see the tension. They see the hesitation. They saw Stefanski refuse to put him in during a blowout win, and they know exactly what that means. The coaching staff is scared of what comes next. Scared of what it means if Shedeur shines. Scared of what it means if he doesn't. Scared of losing control over the narrative that's already slipping through their fingers. Because once he steps on that field, it's no longer theoretical. No more hypotheticals. No more we're focused on the team platitudes. It becomes real. And in Cleveland, real quarterback decisions always come with consequences. There's another layer to this too, one that's been lurking underneath the surface. It's the tension between old-school football culture and modern media reality. Stefanski represents the former. He's part of that coaching tree that values structure, discipline, consistency. You earn your role. You stick to the plan. You block out the noise. But Sanders? He is the noise. He grew up in the spotlight. He leans into the cameras. He's the kind of player who posts behind-the-scenes videos, interacts with fans, controls his own narrative online. That's not a bad thing, it's just the new normal. But for a coach trying to preserve a traditional structure, it's a walking, talking nightmare. And that cultural clash? It's not just playing out on social media. It's playing out inside the building. Stefanski is trying to keep his house in order. Haslam wants to turn it into a headline-grabbing brand. And Sanders, whether he's trying to or not, is now the symbol of everything this franchise is wrestling with. They're not just deciding whether or not to play a quarterback. They're deciding what kind of team they want to be. Are they going to stay conservative? Stick with the guy who quietly does his job and wins you games without fanfare? Or are they going to lean into the spotlight, embrace the chaos, and see what Shedeur can do under the bright lights? It's a fork in the road. And let's be honest, it doesn't look like anyone's holding the map. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel is stuck in the middle of all this, and it's almost tragic. He's done nothing wrong. He's played well. He's kept things steady. And yet, he's the guy people can't wait to move on from. Not because of anything he did, but because of what the other guy might be. It's the curse of being the placeholder. The bridge quarterback. The guy keeping the seat warm for the real show. And make no mistake, Shedeur Sanders is the show. Whether he deserves to be or not, the story has already been written. The fans want it. The owner seems to want it. The media's practically begging for it. Stefanski? He's the last man standing between the Browns and a new era, and you can feel the ground shifting under his feet. The Patriots game is going to be a pressure cooker. Not just for Gabriel. Not just for Sanders. But for the entire organization. Because once that ball is snapped, every play is going to feel like a referendum. Every decision will be second-guessed in real time. If Gabriel struggles, it'll be the loudest chance yet. If he plays well, the conversation just delays another week. And if Stefanski finally gives in and puts Sanders in for a few snaps, that's it. The genie's out of the bottle. Because even if it's just one series, one drive, one fourth-quarter handoff session, the moment Shedeur touches the field, the conversation changes. The Browns will no longer be debating if he'll play. They'll be debating how soon he becomes the guy. And that timeline? It accelerates fast. It's wild to think that a team could go from winning 31-6 to entering a full-blown media firestorm, but that's the reality of today's NFL. Winning doesn't always calm the chaos. Sometimes, it just gives people a louder stage to demand more. That's what Cleveland is dealing with. The loudest whispers in the league. And the part that's so exhausting about this? It could have been avoided. All of it. If they had just managed the situation. If they'd gotten ahead of the narrative. If Stefanski had trotted Sanders out for 2 series during that blowout win against Miami, we're not having this conversation. Fans would have seen him. Media would have cooled down. The pressure would have eased. But instead, the Browns chose silence. And silence in 2025 is its own kind of statement. They didn't say, we're protecting the locker room. They didn't say, we're evaluating all options. They said nothing. And in that void, the narrative wrote itself. Stefanski doesn't trust Sanders. The front office is split. Haslam is meddling. The team's afraid of the spotlight. Whether that's true or not doesn't even matter anymore. Perception is reality in the NFL. And right now, the perception is that the Browns are paralyzed by the pressure. So here we are. The next snap Sanders takes could be the start of a new era, or the beginning of a very messy unraveling. And no matter what happens, it's clear the Browns can't sit on the fence any longer. The fans are watching. The media is circling. And ownership is clearly getting impatient. There's no more time to delay. No more wiggle room. The storm has arrived. Let us know what you think. Is this the moment Stefanski loses the locker room? Should Sanders have played against Miami, or is Cleveland right to hold him back? Smash that like button if you're following every twist of this saga, hit subscribe for weekly deep dives into the wildest moments in sports drama, and don't forget to share this with someone who thinks backup QBs don't matter, because in Cleveland, they always do.